Good evening and welcome along to Extra Time here on Fox's Hub after yet another Leicester City victory. At the start of this season, 4 games in all competitions, 4 wins in all competitions for the Foxes. It couldn't really have started any better for Enzo Maresca during his reign here. Joining us in the studio this evening, or joining me, Dan Bates, in the studio this evening is my co-host, as ever, Iwan Roberts. Good evening, Iwan.
How are you, Dan?
Yeah, very well, thank you. We've got Sunday Times journalist Jonathan Northcroft with us. You were with us a couple of times last season as well with you. Always nice to have you back.
Thanks for getting me back. New season.
Yeah, looking forward to football Jenga the most, I think, aren't you, at the end?
Yeah.
To really show up your football knowledge. As is Tony Cottee, who is fresh off the back of, was it a win in the opening week in football Jenga, wasn't it? And was it second place last week? So it's been a good start to the season for you, Tony.
Well, sort of in hot form, Dan, but that's really telling me more about how bad I was last season rather than how good I am this season, I think.
A good day for you yesterday, Tony.
Yeah, I was at West Ham yesterday, Dan, and fantastic result for the club. I was sitting there watching, and if Chelsea get that penalty and go 2-1 up, I think it might have been a different game. But it's been a good start for the Hammers. 4 points after 2 games. I think everyone's well pleased with that.
Absolutely. If you're watching along on Facebook or on YouTube, do get your comments in. Good evening already to Stuart Russell, who says, good evening, boys. Good evening to you. Hopefully, this is the start of, this is our 3rd show now, Iwan, isn't it? Speaking about 3 victories. Hopefully that can continue because it's been a really good start to the season. Every game's been a close one.
I was here to see history being made on Saturday. For the first time ever, Leicester have won their opening 4 games. I'm surprised you didn't say that, Dan.
I was saving it for you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, mate.
I know you've got it written down.
I did tell Matty on Saturday because I was walking to the ground and a Leicester fan who can remember me playing for the football club, so he was in his sort of mid-60s, I think. he told me, I didn't know, and I told Matty, I said, you can have this from Matty. If Leicester win today, they will be creating history because I was working for the BBC, obviously, not for Leicester. But it was good to be here. It was good to be a great atmosphere again. Mm.
It's been exactly what Enzo Maresca and his side needed, really, at the start.
Yeah, I mean, God, I think the start to the season was going to be really important to him. Going down, I think it's important to every club in that position, and you can see it. Leeds, there's already a bit of grumbling. Southampton have had a bit of grumbling from the fans. So Leicester had the best start. It looks a really good division already. I was at the Etihad on Saturday watching quite a dull top of the table Premier League game. And I wouldn't say the football was as open and as exciting as the football Leicester have seen so far. So it looks like a competitive league. Maybe
it always is. It always is. Yeah. I think I said in the very first show that I couldn't see a team like Burnley running away with this championship. I mean, I played in it for 15 seasons, and it's competitive, it's physical. I just think Leicester, there was a lot of sort of, I would say negativity after there was negativity after what happened last season. 100% record, Leicester and Ipswich top two, scoring late goals, which I think is always a great sign. I think the fitness levels of the lads are magnificent, and that's what happens when you've got a group of lads who are firing on all cylinders, getting late goals. I think it's a great sign.
Yeah, the thing that strikes me already is the sheer class of player in the Championship now. You're looking at internationals, you're looking at players with top flight experience somewhere. Leicester have got a Premier League team on the pitch, but they're not the only ones. Mention Southampton, mention Leeds. They've kept a lot of their players, but there's talent all over the place, and I think that's just shows that as the top gets better and better and richer, then the Championship follows suit.
Chris Hughes on Facebook says, great start, let's keep the results coming in. And Ben Burley says, first time we started the season with 4 wins in all competitions in a row. And everyone's got that start now, and it isn't just you. He says, Tony, that not been playing great yet, but they're getting results. And that's a really key thing to do.
We've touched on it, Dan, over the last couple of weeks, haven't we? This Championship, and Iwan's just said it there. We know how hard a division this is, and it's going to get tougher. There's going to be games where Leicester are going to really, really have to dig in, and I think the results so far, they've not been winning by a massive 4-0s and 5-0s, which you wouldn't expect them to in the Championship. It is a long grind. It's 8 more games than what you play in the Premier League. But the one thing I would say, Dan, is just following on from sort of last season, really, is I think when we all suffered last season watching the games, and too many defeats, etc. And I think as a fan, if you once you get your head around the relegation, like the Foxes fans all have done, they've been there in the past, and that over 30,000 at the game again at the weekend, it shows you like there is that appetite there to come and watch the team. And then if you start getting on that bandwagon where you're winning games, and that there's the feel good factor. And yeah, there's going to be some ups and downs. We know that you're not going to just romp away and go 46 games unbeaten. That's not going to happen in this league. But so far, last week was great because we said we'd had the second league win on the trot. We've now got the third league win on the trot. And I can't believe it's over over 120, 130 years of history that Leicester have never won their first 4 games. It's an incredible achievement. And the boys should be really proud of it. But I'm sure Maresca, he would be saying the same thing as what I'm saying. It's early part of the season. It's only 4 games. Let's keep doing what we're doing, and just keep on this little run and see how far you can go with it.
I think we all would agree that there's a lot more to come. I think that is a fair point. But if you look at all 4 games, possession-wise, Leicester have dominated all 4. To be fair, I mean, going back to Saturday's game, dominated the first half. Game could have been dead and buried at half time. Scored that wonderful goal. Iheanacho hit the post in the first 9 minutes.
Mavididi had a good chance.
Alnwick kept the score down in the first half, to be fair. I mean, Cardiff had 1 shot on target in the first half. I mean, what a shot it was, to be fair. It was an incredible strike from Aaron Ramsey, but I've seen plenty of Aaron to know that he is capable of moments of magic like that. I think the game sort of turned, was it midway through the second half, where, I mean, Cardiff had a great chance to go 2-1 up, and Yaku Mate, I think he's a winger naturally, but he was brought on and played centre forward. I mean, it's a great chance, 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper, and and he misses the target completely. But that's what I like about this Leicester side. They keep going, and I actually missed the goal because I was looking at the referee, expecting him to give a penalty for that foul on Jamie Vardy. Should have had a penalty in the first half as well. We've spoken about that when I think it's Marlon Romeo who brought Mavididi down. How the ref didn't give it, I don't know. But at the minute, they're making things hard for themselves, but they're not as clinical in front of goal as I expected them to be.
No, that's fair. Interesting seeing Enzo today talking about how, I think he said Leicester are only 10 to 20% to where he wants them to be.
Right.
Now, finishing will clearly be one of the aspects. I think you touched on it, you in the couple of chances that Cardiff had, which came in quite close succession, where they just drove straight through the middle of the pitch. I mean, teams will punish that. You can't be as open as that.
Especially the higher you go, you will get punished.
Absolutely. So that's clearly something to work on. But given how good some of the football is already, you can see a different pattern of play and imprint, very much a Guardiola imprint that we'd have expected, the width, the rotations. If that's only 10 to 20%, and Leicester fans are in for a treat, they might be in for some high-scoring games as well, but not bad.
Yeah, well, of the 5 goals scored in the league, Tony, 4 of them have come after the 70th minute. Steve asked the question on YouTube, do you think our fitness is telling in the Championship, highlighted obviously by the fact we've scored a lot of late goals and haven't conceded any late on?
Yeah, I think that's probably something that they've worked on. I mean, as we know, every manager's got different ideas, different what you would call fitness, different ideas of fitness levels. So, what may work under one manager, now you might think you're really fit, and then all of a sudden you get another manager come in, and the lad at Leeds, wasn't it, Bielsa? Do you remember him? I mean, everyone raving about the fitness levels for Leeds and that, but I think he sort of drilled them so much that they was tired by come the end of the season. So you've got to get the balance right. But I think it's a good sign. I think if you're still concentrating, if you're still getting those goals, what to go 92nd minute or whatever it was at the weekend, that's a really good sign that they're not just sitting back and accepting the draw. They're pushing forward. They're trying to get the goals to win the matches and that. And if the fitness level is there, and that will only increase as well. As I said last week, first 6 games, you're trying to get your fitness. That's what the manager means. As a player, if you've only played 3 games this season, not everyone's played all the games. Obviously, there was a cup game. But after 3 games, you're feeling yourself, you're sort of 50, 60% there as a player. So there's a lot more to come from the players individually and as a team as well. But there's no doubt if they're scoring late goals, that's a really good sign going forward.
If you look at that winning goal, I think when Casadei when Casadei scores on his debut, fantastic for the young man. When he puts that ball in, it's great reactions. He's got 4 Cardiff players in and around him, and none of the 4 take responsibility. And
you could blame him for looking at the ref as well, because it looked like a penalty.
And the thing is, when you're playing against Leicester now with this style of play, when you're out of possession for so long, you're going to have to do so much work without the ball, and that takes it out of you. And when your body becomes tired, the first thing to go is your mind, and that's when reactions go. I think that's why Leicester are scoring so many goals, as you said, 4 in the last 20 minutes of games.
It's also having great options off the bench, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, scoring that goal, Albrighton's involved, Vardy's in the box, almost winning a penalty, should have won a penalty, and then Casadei, the other substitute, scores, and that's another thing. The squad is so strong that if you can bring people like that off the bench, young players as well, you are going to go to the end of games.
Can you imagine the opposition on Saturday? Iheanacho's been taken off. Oh, they're bringing on Jamie Vardy.
Yeah. And James Justin's still on the bench. I mean, there's some quality there.
Tony, how impressed were you with Cesare Casadei, the finish in particular? Because it definitely did look like a penalty. Ewan said he missed it himself because he was looking at the referee, whether he was given a penalty kick or not. A number of the players were. I think Kiernan had looked to the ref. He didn't wait. Maybe some of the Cardiff players did. He didn't wait. He made sure he pounced on it and put the finish away.
I'm going to do something I don't normally do, Dan, which is to give the referee some credit here, because I think we've seen so many times the referees, they can't wait to blow their whistle, and it's one of the most, whether you're a player or a journalist or a fan, whatever, it's one of the most frustrating things in football is when there is an incident and the referee straight away will blow his whistle. I've always felt that you should have what you would call like thinking time, like even if it's just 1 second or 2 seconds, just thinking time before you put. You can always see what develops, and the referee deserves great credit because so many referees have gone blown the whistle, and then you've then got the problem of the shot on its way to goal. It might not hit the back of the net, or sometimes they've blown fractionally before it hits the back of the net, and then you've got a massive problem. All the players go mad at you, and all you've got to do is just wait a little bit longer. So I don't know the name of the referee. You can give him a name check in a minute, Dan, but he deserves credit for that. In terms of Cassidy, do what you're told as a kid. Play to the whistle. Always play to the whistle. And, he was sharp, he was alert, and he's thought to himself, you know what, I'm going to put it in the back of the net, and then we'll worry about it. Yes, of course, it looked like a penalty, but I saw an angle from behind the goal, and it was almost like the referee, I don't know, he had his arms up as if to sort of not sure if it's a penalty before even thinking about going to whistle. But in the meantime, the lads put the ball in the back of the net, and it was a really good finish as well because there was bodies in the way, and you don't have time. But as an instinctive thought as a forward, stick it in the back of the net and then worry about it after.
Yeah, Graham Scott was the referee, by the way, Tony. We're not going to give him too much credit, Ewan, because of the penalty that Leicester should have had in the first half as well.
To be fair, Saturday you could tell I wasn't working for the football club and I was working for BBC Wales because my monitor wasn't working in the press box. So every sort of close incident, I had to get off my chair. I had Matty sitting to my left, whose monitor was working. But any replay that I wanted to see, I watched it on the club's monitor. But I mean, the first one was a Stonewall penalty for me in the first. I didn't need a replay. The second one, I sort of needed to see it more than once because I wasn't too sure. We were quite away from that penalty box from where we were, so I wasn't as convinced as the first one. It didn't matter, and as TC said, instinctive. It was instinctive, straight on. I didn't know too much about the young man. He had a loan period at Reading last season. I think he's played at the majority of youth level for Italy. He's another one of these young lads that Chelsea send out on loan to get much needed experience, and he'll get it here at a very good football club at a good level in the Championship, and he couldn't have got off to a better start. Winning goal in front of the home fans, fantastic.
I was going to say the sending off wasn't a difficult decision, though, was it?
No,
I mean, what did you, from a pro's point of view, why does a player do that?
He has got that in him.
Has he?
That's not the first time I've seen him be sent. I mean, he picked up a yellow card.
94th minute.
Yeah.
And then the 96th minute was the second.
He's got a famous father, hasn't he?
Has he?
Yeah. And I will find out. He's got a famous pop star as a father. Yeah, Marlon Romeo.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to do some
No,
play on words in the second name.
The memory isn't great.
Added quiz.
Yeah, he's got a.
But it was to be fair.
That's just stupidity.
Yeah, it was.
Stupidity. Now he's, however many games he's going to get. And Errol Bullitt, he's a no nonsense. He's got a little bit of old school manager about him, and he will let him out. I think that's his first start this season. But he has got that silliness in him. But as you say, no option to send him off.
His dad is Jazzy B.
That's it.
Music producer and musician, was the front man of the R&B group Soul to Soul.
Yes.
Oh, great group. Soul
Brilliant.
to Soul. That's holding back the years, Dan. Even I know that.
We're having that.
Well, his son got sent off at the weekend. Won't be too proud of that. But obviously, at that point, the game was pretty much won by Leicester, wasn't it? And it was in that moment that he did get sent off. Both incidents happened because Leicester were winding the clock down in the corner. Game management.
It was, and it was Dewsbury Hall who's taken a lot of responsibility on himself this year. I noticed he's rolled his socks a little bit further down, going for the Grealish look, but he clearly wants to be the Grealish figure. He wants to be the team's main man now, doesn't he? And maybe that was a factor in the sending off. He's got that swagger about him. Kiernan played some lovely stuff at times, and was trying to wind the clock down in the corner, which I think was part of Romeo's frustration. But yeah, I mean, decent game management at that point by Leicester. As opposed to the not so decent when they were getting cut through in the middle of the second half. But again, that's learning on the job, learning from mistakes.
Which again, when we know what happened last season, obviously with the disappointment, to be able to be in positions where you're winning games and be able to wind the clock down, it is showing professionalism.
It is, and it's also getting good buy-in from the crowd as well. I think that atmosphere helps if the crowd's still anxious at that point, if they don't have the faith in the players. But which I think last season was a factor. Sometimes I think what was the frustration from the stands was part of what was making it difficult for the players. But I understand where the fans were with all of that. I think there's just a new feeling, isn't there? That's what we're saying.
We've always said it. Sometimes you've got to grind results out. Yeah. It can't always be perfect football, winning games comfortably, scoring plenty of goals. Sometimes you've got to dig in, you've got to roll your and kind of that type of side that if you don't do the nitty gritty, the horrible stuff, then they will turn you over. You know, they went to Leeds opening day and got a good point there when they were in a great position, winning 2-0. Although Leeds have had a really poor start to the season. Sometimes you've got to dig in and, as I say, grind it out. I think it was Big Walsh's word. Come on, the grinders. And sometimes you've got to do that. There's nothing wrong with doing all that horrible stuff that you have to do. And I thought they did it superbly on Saturday. Yeah,
which again, Tony, as we've been saying, you've got to do it sometimes, haven't you? Especially, as we've said, if you're not playing the football that you know that you can play yet, which, as Jonathan says, if Enzo is saying he's 20% there,
scary, that.
Imagine hopefully what they can be later on in the season.
Yeah, and Ewan's right as well. It was Steve Walsh who come out with the grinders. Like he used to say every single game, "Come on, lads, let's grind out another result." And that, but you sort of know what Walshy means. It's applying yourselves individually and as a team, and then of course it's that professionalism that you need. It's not a word I enjoy using, but you have to do that in professional football. Listen, if you're playing on a Sunday morning in a park team or whatever, then of course you don't have to do things like that, really. You know, even though they probably do because they probably watch it on the telly. But in professional football, you've got to do what's right. You've got to get the ball in the corner sometimes. The lads got sent off because he was frustrated. Clearly, you know, we've all been there, and it's not a nice feeling when you're frustrated. You're getting a point away from home against a very, very good Leicester team, and all of a sudden you can see the goal in injury time and you get frustrated. But you can't be doing what he did now. I mean, in the good old days when there was no cameras, you could get away with all sorts. Now, as we all know, there's replays, and even in the Championship, everything's scrutinised, so you can't be doing that. But from Leicester's point of view, coming back to the point, grinding away, digging in, getting the results, managing the game. And, I think Jonathan's right. At times last season, they didn't do that, Leicester. I think there was a game right at the start of last season, wasn't there, when they was 2 goals up.
Brentford first game, yeah.
And, and you've got to close off games like that. You can't be particularly, whatever league, Premier League, Championship. If you get in that good position, then you've got to get into that grinding mode that Walshy was always on about. Kill the game off, get your 3 points, and look forward to next week.
You'll have obviously played in teams, Ewan, where you've not played very well, or you've had spells where you're not playing well, but you're picking up victories. What's that like when you're in the dressing room?
Fantastic. I mean, you're winning games that you probably know you shouldn't have. You're winning games where you've played better and lost, but it's all about winning. It is all about winning. It's getting that momentum, it's getting that confidence. And the scary thing is, 4 wins out of 4, as we've spoken about, only 20% into the 10 or 20% into the process. The signs are great. I mean, I expected Leicester to be there or thereabouts from the very beginning. There's still lots of football to be played this season. We know that, but the early signs, you have to say, are very, very positive.
Yeah. Ewan, you've jogged my memory there. Sorry. About when you said it's all about winning. Just a quick story. When I was my last sort of season at Leicester, and I sat down. I think it was one lunchtime, and I had the privilege of sitting with Martin O'Neill. And Martin turned to me right out of the blue and said, "He said, oh, Tony, you want to be a manager one day, don't you?" Which I did. He said, "Tell me what's important." And all that. So I've done this fantastic Churchill speech going on about formations and getting the academy right and tactics, and I droned on for about 5 minutes, and eventually Martin went, "Let me stop you there." He said, "Football's about one thing: winning." And that's exactly what he said to me. And you look back, and I had my very, very brief spell at Barnet, and you look back, and it was so right what he says. You could play all the attractive football. If you get beat 5-4, or you do what Wrexham have been doing, one of your teams, Ewan, and conceding goals, and everyone, what a great game. Oh well, we drew 5-5 sort of thing. Football is very much about winning at the professional level. But I did learn a lesson from Martin O'Neill that day, without a doubt.
He had a bit of a sort of hard time when he first took over at Leicester, Martin. I mean, we weren't playing well. We weren't winning games, and the crowd got on his back a little bit. And it took, I think it was a Stevie Claridge. I mean, it was a great strike at the Valley. We beat Charlton 1-0, and Charlton were up there as well. And I think it was Stevie's first goal for the football club. And I say we won the game 1-0. We went on a great run then from the end till the end of the season. Got into the playoffs, beat Palace. We never looked back after that.
Mm. And yeah, the club never looked back really, particularly under Martin.
I left sadly.
See, I wish you'd been there for another season.
Biggest regret ever, ever.
Right, that's a nice time to do our first Lurdle of the evening. If you're new to the show, either this season or last season, basically it's a game. We'll play snippets of commentary of a goal scored by a Leicester City player. We need you to give us the scorer and the team that it was scored against. We've had a couple of people saying the two in the last couple of weeks have been too easy. So maybe this one's going another way.
Last week was because I got it first time.
So it must have been easier if you were getting it first time. Right, clue number 1 then for the Lidl. Don't worry if you can't get it, obviously straight away, because there'll be more clues to come.
Wide to the left-hand side, Justin coming up now. Edge of the penalty area. Justin curls one in over the head of Vardy.
So we're getting now for clue number 1. I'll play it one more time.
Wide to the left-hand side, Justin coming up now. Edge of the penalty area. Justin curls one in over the head of Vardy.
There we go. So that's your clue number 1. We're looking for the goal scorer of the team it was scored against. An additional clue. There's always a link somewhere with something. You always try and figure out what the link might be. There's always a reason why we pick that particular goal. Lisa Howe on Facebook. Hopefully I'm saying your second name right there. Lisa says, positive start to the season, as we've been saying, considering where we're at the end of the last one. And that's one thing in particular that you've got to really praise Enzo Maresca for is obviously lifting a team and a dressing room that were probably morale-wise as low as it can be.
Yeah, lifting a fan base, lifting a club. He had it all ahead of him to do. You could look at it two ways, say it was a good time to take over because Leicester were at a low point, but actually that's probably that's that sort of wise after the event way of looking at it. The reality was a difficult job, and he seems to communicate well. I haven't met him myself yet, but he seems to be positive but grounded at the same time. He's the football speaks for itself. He's attracted good players as well. I mean, you look at the standard of player coming in, Harry Winks, Connor Cottee. People want to play for him. That's good. I like Willie Caballero as assistant. I do know him a little bit better, and he's a great character.
What do you think he's bringing to the team?
Great mentality. I mean, he is a player who, maybe like a lot of goalkeepers get tested mentally a lot. I don't think any goalkeeper goes through a career without having some real low points, because it's an exposed position, and he had some real low points and battled back and was a top player at Chelsea at nearly 40. He reinvented himself. He overcame doubters. One stuff in his career, Argentine, which is these guys know how to win. So I like that mix, early days, but we were talking about the importance of winning. And to speak to Martin O'Neill's point that he said to Tony, I mean, that buys you time. He's bought himself time. That start has bought him that little bit of time to do the work and get his ideas across.
And when you think the standard of player that's left the football club as well, and the recruitment side of it's been very good. I think there's still a lot more to come from some of the younger lads that have been brought in. I don't think Connor Cottee and Harry Winks signed for any other championship club. I honestly don't.
No, I mean that's a training ground. That's what the club's done over the last sort of 10 years. That's a stadium as well.
We've not even seen Connor Cottee yet, have we? Oh, you saw him on Saturday because he was in the studio.
He was a guest for us, Tony, on Saturday for Matchday Live. You can catch up with that, you guys at home, for the last half an hour of Matchday Live. And he was absolutely brilliant. And he spoke so glowingly of the group, the culture, in particular, Enzo Maresca, and the fact that he's not really had any time. He had a couple of friendlies, obviously picked up that injury, really unfortunate for him, but he says that he still tries to watch pretty much every single session. He's been at every single game. He's clearly a big character in the dressing room, but what he's saying is that Enzo Maresca seems to be the real deal. That's what he thinks.
Yeah, which is great to hear from all the fans. Listen, it's nice for me to hear that, but for the fans, more importantly, you want the players to be eulogising about how good the manager is, and of course it's early days, and of course you mustn't get too carried away about it. But the boys are right. I think the likes of Harry Winks and the likes of Cottee, that would they have signed for any other club? But it probably wouldn't have done. We all know what Leicester have been through in the last 10 years. It's been an incredible, fantastic roller coaster ride that everyone's really enjoyed being a part of. But it's still a wonderful football club. You've got great fans, you've got a great stadium, one of the best training grounds, if not the best training ground in the country. So everything's there. Connor seems a really, really great lad. I don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting him, individually, but I've seen him on television. I've seen a few interviews. He seems bubbly. He's been a very, very good player. He was that linchpin for a long, long time, wasn't he, at Wolves? So he's got the experience and that, and he's the type of lad you want in the dressing room. And Harry Winks as well. They're not the kids anymore that we remember them being. They're now sort of senior players and that, and you want them to. You need that experience in the dressing room. It's all right having a really young, youthful team, etc. When it gets to the business part of the season, as I think sadly Arsenal found out last year, you need that experience in the dressing room of what you've gone through, and that's exactly what Connor will bring to this dressing room.
He's a fabulous character, Connor. I mean, he's one of the. As a journalist, he's one of the biggest pleasures to interview. Full of ideas, full of chat. Really pleasant as a person. Really positive, but not positive in a kind of smarmy way. There's something very genuine about him. Last time I saw him was at Wolves, and he was really close to Ruben Neves there, which interested me. The two of them kind of ran that football club, and Iwan and Tony speak very eloquently about the spirit that they had at this football club when they were players, and that was carried through to winning the title and beyond. I mean, this football club has always, when it's been successful, has been built on great dressing room cultures, and Connor will bring that off the pitch as well as what he brings on the pitch. He's the kind that will get players together. He'll get them doing stuff socially. He'll be very good with the youngsters. He'll be good with the foreign players. He's that type of lad. And when he was around the England scene, I mean, Gareth Southgate absolutely loved him. They all loved him. They all absolutely loved him. But Gareth could see what he was doing for the squad in terms of culture behind the scenes.
A great example of that, Iwan, is he said on Saturday, we asked him about the new signing, Cesare Casadei, obviously on loan. He said, he's only known him less than a week. He seems quite quiet, but it's our job, it's my job to get him out of his shell and get him integrated in the group. And that's for someone who's a new player himself at the football club.
Any successful team, and Jonathan's absolutely spot on, you've got to get that dressing room 100% right. You can't have little clicks in corners and backstabbing and all that. You've got to be one close together unit. That's the right word of describing it. And and these two additions, Connor Cottee, two great professionals who have played at the highest level. They seem like right down to earth lads, which I think it's always a breath of fresh air when you get these big players coming into your football club. And I was sitting in the press box after the game, and it must have been about 5:25, and he came out with his children and had a little kickabout on the King Power turf. So he knows what it's like. Listen, you can't have enough options, and a player of his quality, the defensive qualities that he'll bring to the team when he's fit, it's going to be it's a fantastic problem for Enzo to have.
Yeah, let's do clue number 2 then of our Lardle this evening. It'll incorporate clue number 1 as well. So remember, we're looking for the goal scorer and the team that it was scored against. We've had a few guesses in already. Andy Harding on Facebook says, is it Damari Gray away at Cardiff in the Premier League? No, it isn't. And Leicester Till I Die on YouTube says, Luke Thomas against Man United. Now, he's also put in his reasoning, or the link that he thinks that it is. And you're definitely on the right lines with that one, but it wasn't Luke Thomas against Man United. So here's clue number 2.
Wide to the left-hand side, Justin coming up now. Edge of the penalty area. Justin curls one in over the head of Vardy. Headed away by Gibbs, so he could have let that one go. Jose Perez takes it down the edge of the box. Pratt.
There we go. Do you want one more time, or are we happy? I'll play it one more time for those of you at home.
Wide to the left-hand side, Justin coming up now. Edge of the penalty area. Justin curls one in over the head of Vardy. Headed away by Gibbs, so he could have let that one go. Jose Perez takes it down the edge of the box. Pratt.
So there you go. There's clue number 2. So Leicester Divide on YouTube says the link is both goals, one against Cardiff and Luke Thomas's, were the first league goals for the club, just as Cesare Casadei's was. So there's an additional clue for you. So he was right on the link there. Let's speak about that man, the Italian though, Cesare. Obviously, you were here watching him live in the flesh. He had about half an hour, didn't he? You and Jerry Taggart was very impressed with him. Said he seemed to do the basics, but with purpose. And obviously stepping up to get the goal on your debut.
That's all he can do. You've got to do the basics right. And it's hard for whether you're a young player or an experienced player. When you move to a new club, you want to impress, you want to win people over. But especially when you're a centre forward or when you're a player who's supposed to get goals in the team. And I'm sure that's why he's been brought another option, another attacking option. I remember when I signed for the club, I'd never scored. Unlike TC, who scored on his debut for every club that he played for. The only club that I scored for on my debut was for Leicester against Wolves, and it just takes the pressure off you. You make yourself a bit of a hero. I still get reminded of the one that I missed to make it 3 on the day, but it's a great way of sort of introducing yourself to everybody. It was a little bit of a cameo role, but he did everything nice and tidy. He looks like he's got a good engine about him, but you'd expect that for a young man. And yeah, he took his goal ever so well, didn't think twice, good awareness, good anticipation, bang, get in, 3 points.
Yeah, I think just looking on early impressions, midfielders are going to score a lot of goals for this Leicester team. They are being encouraged to get in that box.
Yeah.
They're flooding forward, and there's, the width that Enzo's playing with is going to open those gaps as they pin teams, pin defences, and he exploited that brilliantly. Great movement in the box. He's had his, one of many players that signed for Chelsea has had his loan. Maybe didn't make a massive impression at Reading, and this is a big spell
Big
for him
chance
now.
for him. Big chance for him.
He's got to do something now to catch Mauricio Pochettino's attention over the next year, and that could be really good news for Leicester.
Yeah, one thing I'm sure that did catch Pochettino's attention, Tony, was the Under-20 World Cup in the summer. He scored 7 goals as Italy made it through to the final. They did lose the final, but he was the top scorer at the tournament. He also won the golden ball and golden boot, so he was the best player at the tournament, the highest scorer. And this is from someone who plays in midfield. He classes himself as a box-to-box midfielder.
Yeah, and it's a great attribute to have, Dan, isn't it? I mean, I think everyone's looking. I'm still struggling to get my head round holding midfield players going for £100 million nowadays. So if you could get someone to do what Stevie G did or Frank Lampard did, that goal-scoring midfielder, and we're not talking 20 or 30 goals from midfield. We're talking over 100, 150, or in Frank's case, over 200 goals from midfield. It's an incredible achievement. And that's the sort of player you want to try and model yourself on. If you can be a midfield player scoring goals, you can imagine the demand on that. But as for the young kids, we might talk about it a bit more later on, but it's hard for the youngsters nowadays. They don't always get their chance as a 16, 17-year-old. Sometimes they've got to be patient. Straight off the top of my head, Harry Kane springs to mind. I mean, Harry had 4 loan spells before he even was allowed to play for Tottenham.
One here as
well,
yeah.
Really. Yeah. Sorry?
One here as well, one at Leicester, of course, yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So you've got to, the young players have got to be patient nowadays. But, all you can do, you do your best. And, one day perhaps you go back to your parent club and that. But in the meantime, you've got to impress people. You've got to score goals. You've got to be on the field of play, because if you're sitting on the bench, that's no good to anyone and you're not impressing anyone.
We saw a lot of Leicester fans on social media as well over the weekend just saying, don't fall in love with a lone player. Don't fall in love with a lone player.
But I mean, I didn't know that the goal scoring ability that he had in the World Cup, and you can see why, because the positions that he takes up, especially for the goal that he scored on Saturday, because he was the furthest blue shirt forward when that ball came or dropped him, but he's still got to be there to make that run and see that opening and take that chance. You can tell that he's got an eye for goal.
Yeah, well, Enzo Maresca in his press conference when he was asked about Cesare Casadei said, you don't need to tell him when to arrive into the box. He will go and do it, and he wants to score goals.
It's one of, as a non-player trying to observe and decode how players do things sometimes, that ability to time runs in the box, it's such an elusive skill, isn't it? it seems as natural as something Tony had in his ability to, as a striker, to be in the right place at the right time. There's that midfield version of it as well. But it's timing, isn't it? It's that sense.
Gary Speed was brilliant.
Yeah.
Honestly, Speed was unbelievable. He scored so many goals at the back stick, just arriving at that. You have to work at it, but I do think it's something that I think you're born with, if that sort of makes sense. That you work at it, you work at different things. It's like goal scoring. I think it's something that you're born with to a degree.
I watched a player for Aberdeen called Billy Stark. I don't know if you guys remember.
Yeah.
I mean, Billy, he did nothing. He didn't touch the ball in the game, and then scored. Came from midfield, popped it in once every game.
I made a career out of that, Jonathan, doing nothing.
That was your job, though, Tony.
But you're quite right what you're saying. That it is. I think it's something that you can be born with, and you are born with it. But there is also an element of percentages as well. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're involved in midfield play, ball gets forward, and then, as was the case on Saturday, if you're standing on the edge of the box, the ball ain't going to fall to you in that on the 6-yard line or the penalty spot. We see a lot of players nowadays. They do their pass, they stand still, they don't follow their run, they don't run into the box. The good old days of Brian Robson's another one who springs to mind. Great English player who scored lots of goals from midfield. But you've got to get in. You've got to get in the penalty box, even as a centre forward. And people used to say about, like you used to get a tap-in where the goalkeeper spills the ball and that, But what people didn't always look at is the 6 or 7, 8 times, Ewan knows what I'm talking about, that you run in and the goalkeeper claims the ball. And then if you then don't run the next time, then full well he'll drop it. And you think, if only I'd have done that, I'd have scored. and so there is a percentages to the game as well. But you're right, I think that real top-class scoring goals from midfield, like the Lampards, the Gerrards, etc., Brian Robson's, I think that's something you're born with.
Yeah, I've just got up the Leicester winner, actually, as Casaday's hitting it into the net. You've got Yannick Vestergaard around about the penalty spot. Mark Albrighton's in there. Wout Fass is on the edge of the box. Kieran Dewsbury-Hall's in the box. Obviously, Vardy is. He sort of created it, didn't he? And Casaday scoring. And that shows there's numbers in the box there, including your centre-half, to try and get the winner.
Do you know what's impressed me? I'm thinking... Centre forward as number 9, if there is such a thing these days, hasn't scored a league goal for Leicester. As you say, midfield, Dewsbury-Hall, the 2 against Coventry, Mavididi against Huddersfield, Madivadua got the first one against Cardiff, and that was a terrific finish, to be fair to him.
And that was another moment where the ball's slightly loose in the box and it's just sharpness, it's absolute anticipation, being on it straight away.
Callum Doyle came close in the second half. Great save to his left by, I think they've just got freedom to get as many players in the box as they can.
Yeah, fair play to Marcel on his first senior goal, isn't it, really? And he took it really well.
I mean, how much power he's got into that shot. It's beating the keeper, he's not even seen it, to be fair. It's gone past him. It wasn't the best defensive header. I think it was Jimmy Collins who sort of under pressure headed it out. But just the way he sort of strides forward, 2-3 strides, he's under pressure, he's got to take it early, he hasn't got time to take a touch. And the power that he generates, is a really, really good finish.
Right, clue number 3 then for our Lardle this evening. Again, we're looking for the goal scorer and the team that it was scored against. Here comes clue number 3.
Wide to the left-hand side, Justin coming up now. Edge of the penalty area. Justin curls one in over the head of Vardy. Headed away by Gibbs, so he could have let that one go. Jose Perez takes it down the edge of the box. Pratt gets it back in the area here now. Dennis Pratt, left-hand side, puts the ball over. A chance at the far post, and he's headed into the net. It's a debut goal.
There you go. So there you go. You look confident there.
No. I think I know the opposition, but I'm scoring out Damari Gray because I thought it was one.
Can we say the opposition?
Yes.
West Brom.
It's got to be West Brom.
Yeah. West Brom's the opposition and a debut goal.
That's got to be.
It sounds COVID times as well. It sounds like.
Yeah, I was going to say there's no crowd down by the sounds of it, so that would be 2020-ish. So we're 3 years ago, someone who made their debut scoring.
At West Brom. Iwan Robertson's got it right. So after 3 clues, you've got it.
Not as quick this week.
Yeah, I'll read out some of the correct answers as well on YouTube and Facebook. Those of you that have got it in just a moment. Don't want to give it away for those that haven't yet.
Do you want me to say it or do you write it
No,
down?
write it down.
Okay.
Write it down. Yeah, who you think it might be. A couple of minutes. We'll have to do our predictions in just a moment. No. No. He was here long before COVID times.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can come back to that. We've got clue number 4 we'll do in about 8 minutes' time or something like that. But listen, last point on the game and really on the game coming up next week. Rotherham away. It's a team that haven't started brilliantly. They're in the relegation zone. One draw in their 3 games. There's no easy game, obviously, we know that. I know it's a cliche, but Leicester will really fancy themselves there to make it 4.
Little trip to the New York Stadium. Can't wait. They will. As you said, they've got 1 point in 3 games. They finished 19th last season. They lost their best player and top scorer in Ogbonna, who signed for Luton. Yeah, I can envisage another long, tough struggle for Rotherham this season. They're one of the favourites to go down. I think they did ever so well to avoid relegation last season, but I think that was probably more to do with sort of points being deducted by the likes of Wigan and Reading, albeit they finished above Cardiff and QPR, I think, so all credit to them. But I would expect the winning streak to continue.
Oh yeah, I mean, you should do, but I mean Rotherham at home, that's where they get their points, isn't it? And they're one of those scrappy clubs that punch above their weight all the time. The fact they're still in there is quite amazing. But to be champions or to go up, you need to win this game.
Absolutely. Yep, and it's another game you can follow, of course, on Fox's Hub. We'll be live from 2 p.m. on Saturday for that one. Right, it is time for Iwan Roberts to take the reins of the show here on Extra Time as we go globetrotting. Take it away, Iwan.
Right. Yeah, go. Right, Barcelona. Is it? We talk Cadiz?
Cadiz, we think. Yeah. You probably know that.
And they don't play the Camp Nou at the minute because I think it's been renovated.
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
right. Yeah.
Barca won 2-0, and there was a young lad, TC, Lamine Yamal. He was born on the 13th of July 2007, which makes him only 16, making his debut. 16 years of age, playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. And me and Dan saw a bit of the highlights of the game before we came into the studio, and he did well. Played right wing back. He's all left foot. Unlucky not to score. Put a great ball in early doors, didn't he? And I don't know who headed for goal, but he should have headed it across the 6-yard box, and Lewandowski would have had a tap in. But yeah, he looked very, very good, to be fair. Very, very good. And we were thinking about young players making their debuts. I think Emile was 16. I think I played in that game as well. I think it was Norwich. I think it was.
He just turned 17. Emile.
And he scored, didn't he? I think he scored the winner at Filbert Street against Norwich. Am I right?
Not sure you are.
But you've got a little list, haven't you?
Yes, I've got a list of. I always try and get a Leicester link, obviously, in whatever you're talking about. Ashley Chambers is Leicester's youngest ever player. He was 15 years old and 6 months when he made his debut for the club, which is obviously very impressive. That was against Blackpool, but yeah, 15 years old and 6 months. Impressive. In the current group, Will Alves, he's 5th in the list from a Leicester City point of view. Obviously would have made more appearances, you'd feel, last season, potentially off the bench, had it not been for that ACL injury that he had. So hopefully he can return, and he's still a young lad as well. So Peter Shilton's on that list. He's 3rd in the list of Leicester's youngest ever players.
I was 17 when I made my debut for Watford against Terry Butcher.
Oh wow,
against Big Terry.
Welcome to football.
Do you know what? He was an absolute gentleman. Right. Never laid a glove on me, really. I probably didn't have to, did he? But honestly, he was such a nice man. Such a nice man. TC, how old were you for West Ham?
I was 17 and 5 months, Ewan. So just a real baby. And I always say you to make your debut, you need that. The little bit of luck comes into it is when the star striker, which was Paul Goddard in my case, very, very good player, QPR West Ham. He was injured. And I was only 17, but there was a reserve player called Nicky Morgan who never quite made it at West Ham, but he'd scored loads of goals in the reserves. So I'm thinking the 21-year-old was obviously going to play in front of the 17-year-old. But John O had faith in me, put me in. And then what he done really well, Ewan, which I think is really important for youngsters, is to dip them in, dip them out, dip them in, dip them out, rather than, unless you've got like a Messi or a Rooney or someone, you can not literally leave out the team. Most young players, I think you've got to be so careful. And for this young boy to play for Barcelona, it's such a young age. But, you know, we've seen it before. Sometimes they can go on and have fantastic careers. Other times, I'm trying to think of his name. There was it John Bostock? Do you remember John?
Yeah.
Was it John Bostock? He was a young kid, and his career never really kicked on. And sometimes you play these kids really, really young, and it can have the opposite effect to what you actually want. So you've got to be really careful with the young lads.
Tony, we've just gone on the internet and found your debut goal, and it's a very Tony Cottee goal, isn't it? I think the defender hits the bar, does he? And then you're just right there just to tap it in, basically.
It was a towering header from 2 yards out. But if you look at the clip, I mean, I was actually being marked by Steve Perryman, fantastic player for Tottenham, played 800 games. Steve Perryman's 5 yards behind me when I'm tapping it in the back of the net, which goes back to what I was saying about instinct and following up and, just trying to, as a young lad, I always thought if someone's having a shot or a header at goal, which it was, you just go for the rebound. And sometimes you get somebody enough. On that day, it worked fantastically for me.
TC, was there a goal bonus back then for you as a young boy?
Ewan, do you know what? My first, you'll love this, my first full season at West Ham as an 18-year-old, I scored 15 league goals and 4 cup goals, so 19 goals in total. And I was paid the princely sum of £110 per week.
Scary, mate.
Blimey.
If you imagine a young boy now doing that, you'd get probably 110 grand a week, wouldn't you? Not £110 a week, So it's certainly different times.
Yeah. Well, that was good. We're gonna have to move it on because we're getting towards the end. I just said Steve on YouTube has said that Heskey's debut, and he's right, was in a defeat to QPR. He says the team had loads out with flu. So that's when he made his debut, and he said that Heskey scored against Norwich a bit later in the season after Mark McGee left before O'Neill arrived. So thank you very much for correcting Ewan Roberts there, Steve. It's impressive.
I said the memory's not what it was.
Right, okay, so before the end of the show, obviously we've got our football Jenga. Let's do the final of our Lurdle clues, though. So I think most people have got it, even in the comments as well. I'll read out those who've got it right, but we'll play the last clue for everybody now.
Wide to the left-hand side, Justin coming up now. Edge of the penalty area. Justin curls one in over the head of Vardy. Headed away by Gibbs, so he could have let that one go. Jose Perez takes it down the edge of the box. Pratt gets it back in the area here now. Dennis Pratt, left-hand side, puts the ball over. A chance at the far post, and he's headed into the net. It's a debut goal. What an introduction for life at Leicester City. The man signed from Atalanta crashes in the header of the far post. And we have the opener. West Bromwich Albion 0, Leicester City 1.
Go on, Ewan.
Timothy Castagna.
Timothy Castagna. Well done. Yeah, we had loads of people that got it right. Well done to Jikan, to Andy, to Najib, Leicester Till I Die eventually got it right. Stuart, Jane and Eddie as well. Well done. There was a few more as well that I've not been able to write down, but they're the ones that got it right. So well done to you. Right, before we do our Prediction League update, we've got to give our clue for tonight's football Jenga. So, after Cesare Casadei netted the winner on his debut for Leicester, name anyone that scored on their debut for the club. So anyone that has scored on the debut, we've just given away one there. This is a difficult one.
No
I was looking at this earlier today, so I think I've got a slight advantage, but it might be a pretty short one this week after last week's one that went on and on. Right, Prediction League then. Ahead of each weekend, our guests have a little go at predicting 5 games that have taken place in the Championship. The early kickoff was on the Friday evening, wasn't it? It was Leeds against West Bromwich Albion. It was 1-1. I'm pleased to say that both myself and Matt Elliott got that one spot on. So that means we get 3 points each there for that. And then there's nothing for Ewan and for Tony. Plymouth against Southampton. It was a very, very late goal. Well done, Tony Cottee, for getting all 3 points there. Matt Elliott was just minutes away from another 3 points. And I get 1 point as well because I got the correct result. Then Blackburn against Hull. They turned it around, didn't they? So no points for anybody. Nobody predicted Hull to go to Blackburn and win. Sunderland against Rotherham. Matt Elliott, he's on fire this week. He's got another 3 points. We all get 1 point, other than Matt, who gets all 3. And finally, Norwich against Millwall. I'm the only person not to get a point there. I thought that Millwall might have got something at Carrow Road, but they didn't. So well done, Ewan, Matt and Tony all getting a point. Let's see what that's done to the league table then. After 2 weeks of our predictions, I'm rock bottom, along with you, Ewan, which is pleasing.
Just running away with it.
So it's been a better game week for me there. I got 5, Ewan got 2. Otherwise, I was really rooted. Tony, you're in second place. You've got your own team this season by request, not to be let down by guests like Jonathan Northcroft coming in, doing a poor job with the
predictions. I just wanted to blame myself, Dan. I can only do that this year.
And Matt and Jerry on 13, running away with it. Right, our football Jenga theme then is any Leicester player to have scored on their debut. I think this could be quite a short football Jenga, but we'll see. We'll see what we've got. Tony, we can start with you then.
Did you say any Leicester player in the history of the club, or was it Premier League?
In the history of the club, mate, yeah.
Nice of the club, right. The only one I'm going to go Castagna.
Casadei.
I'm going to say Iwan Roberts.
Bang out of order that. That's it, I'm gone.
I'm done, aren't I? Andy King, did he score in his debut?
It's a long...
Made him think about it.
No, I'm afraid not. That's Jonathan. I doubt this is going to be a very short one, I think. Tony, it's back round to you.
Back to me. I don't even know whether this would be correct. I'll go Gary Lineker.
Just you and I then, Ewan.
I'm not sure if Jamie Vardy did, to be fair. I'm not sure. Did he? You know Jamie Vardy.
I'll say Tete last season.
Good one.
Villa Park.
Yeah, Villa, yeah. Just you and I.
Oh, yeah, isn't it? Alan Smith.
It's an ominous way. James Justin scored on his debut against Luton, yeah. I saw those earlier today, so that's a bit of a hollow. It's a hollow victory, that one. I can't really claim that. Yeah, that's a very short football Jenga.
We set a good standard last week, didn't we?
Last week it was the Women's World Cup teams, I think. Oh no, that was the
Premier
first
League.
week. We did well in that one.
Yeah, Premier League.
And then it was any team that have played in the Premier League, and we got all the way to about, I think, 2 or 3 teams
I'd
left.
have had a go at that.
Yeah, that would have been
Unlike
better than this week anyway. We've already spoken, Tony, about obviously the game on Saturday away at Rotherham, but there's that one, and then there's Hull City at home before the international break, where you play in sort of Saturday and then Saturday after the international break. You know that the Championship very much gets into Saturday, Tuesday type. Well, the schedule is that
I think
heavy?
that's the thing about this month. Normally August, you get 6 or 7 games, and I know there was the League Cup game as well, but I think that's been a positive for Leicester, that they haven't had a Championship game in midweek, which has given them more time to get the style, get the process that we keep saying up at Seagrave.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think as a new head coach, that's what you want. You want as much time to implement your style out on the training pitch, and having just the one game in midweek, and I know the League Cup at Tranmere, we've got that coming up next week. I think that's been a real positive for Enzo.
Yeah, and I think especially this first phase of the season where there's 3 international breaks before Christmas, coaches look at it in chunks, and the first chunk is that first international break. So Enzo will have been looking at that, and it couldn't have gone any better so far. If Leicester can get to that break with 5 wins, transfer window's shut, so the squad takes shape. I mean, there might be a couple of outgoings like Sudaka, probably not any more incomings, but squad takes shape, and then it's another 2 weeks to train them. and then to go again with the more tight schedule. But this is everything results-wise anyway, Enzo would have hoped for.
I mean, it makes such a difference for even this show. It just makes it so much easier when the club's doing well, the club's win. I mean, last season it was hard because obviously not winning games in a tough situation, you know, fighting for our lives to stay in the Premier League. And you try and be as positive as you can about things, but it was hard at times, wasn't it, Dan? This season, I mean, it's a joy to turn up because the lads are winning and long may it continue. I
think from a supporter's point of view, Tony, as well, I know speaking to a couple of them that were coming to the game at the weekend, they were sort of bouncing here. They were really excited to come to King Power Stadium, which maybe wasn't the case at times last season. But now that they're confident of coming here, getting a victory, and hopefully to be entertained.
No, you know, I mean, Leicester quite rightly are one of the favourites to go straight back up. You know, it's not going to be easy, and the two games that we've said, you know, Rotherham and then Hull, I think I picked both of them to go down, but I mean, obviously Hull had a good victory at the weekend, didn't they? And you know full well Rotherham are going to be fighting for their lives. I feel sorry for Rotherham in a way because they're a really good club, but they're almost sort of too good for League One, but not really good enough for the Championship. And they're sort of yo-yo, up and down type of club. But they will make it very tough for Leicester. But no, the feel-good factor's there for the fans, and the reason it's there is because of the performances and because of the results that we've been touching on all night. You know, they've made a fantastic start to the season. And, you know, of course I want Leicester to win the next two games, but even if they stay unbeaten, in other words, maybe win one, draw one, whatever that might be, you know, that's a fantastic start to the season. You can get 13 out of 15 points. You can then, you know, have your little break. You know, some players go away on international duty, but then you've got others at the training ground you can work on, and then the manager can get everyone together. And as we said, the window shut, all them things come into play. But, you know, once the European football starts for other teams around the country, you know, instead of the European football, you know, there's Championship fixtures, and that's where it gets really, really intense. You know, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, and it gets, you know, lots of games in September. So there's a lot of excitement to come, but I think there's an important couple of league games coming up for the club now.
Keep that winning habit. I mean, if the lads can stay unbeaten till the first international break, I mean, we know the next game is a massive game. You know, Southampton down at St Mary's. They've had a good start, even though I don't think they're sort of firing on all cylinders yet either. But yeah, if 4 points for the next two games, I'd love 6. If it's not to be, you know, they've given themselves a great opportunity, I think, to stay unbeaten in the first 5 games of this season.
Yep, and hopefully that does happen. And as ever, you can follow it all on Fox's Hub. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. That means we'll be live from 2 p.m. with every game this season. You can potentially watch it depending what territory you're in, but you can all listen to it as well. Any details of how to do that, all you need to do is head to the website and it'll tell you everything you need to know. A big thank you as ever to Tony Cottee and to Iwan Roberts for their company. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for coming in. I hope you've enjoyed it again. We'll make sure next time you're in, the football Jenga's a little bit of an easy one.
Can we do a Scottish football Jenga?
Exactly, yeah, you definitely win that one. Thank you very much to the three of you. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We're smiling because it's another Leicester win. Hopefully it will be. We'll be back again with Extra Time in a week's time, hopefully talking about another Leicester City victory. Good night.